The invitation was meant to be cruel, a quiet joke wrapped in fake nostalgia, and it landed on Aariz Malik's phone early on a bright Saturday morning when sunlight spilled through the cracked curtains of his small apartment. It was a class reunion message, cheerful emojis masking old contempt, inviting the so-called class loser and single dad everyone once laughed at. They remembered him as the boy who wore the same faded shoes, who worked nights to support his sick mother, who never quite fit into their polished circles. What they did not expect was that the man they mocked would arrive by helicopter and in doing so shake every shallow belief they still carried. Before the story goes deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that restore faith in humanity, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Aariz Malik had learned early that life does not pause for grief. At 24, he buried his wife under a merciless afternoon sun, holding the tiny fingers of his newborn son, Zion, while the world moved on without apology. By 26, he was a single father juggling daytime construction work and night shifts at a warehouse, surviving on instant noodles, borrowed patience, and the soft smile of a child who believed his father was the strongest man alive. He lived in a narrow apartment where the paint peeled like tired skin, but the windows always stayed open during the day to let in light, because Aariz refused to raise his son in darkness, even when his own life felt shadowed. Back in school, Aariz had been invisible except when someone needed a joke. He was the boy teachers praised quietly and classmates ignored loudly. While others talked about overseas universities and family businesses, he worried about medical bills and electricity cut to off notices. When his mother passed away in his final year, some classmates sent empty condolences, others whispered that tragedy followed him like a curse. By graduation, most had forgotten him completely, except as a convenient example of someone who never made it. Years passed. The world aged. People changed, or at least believed they did. The reunion was organized by the same faces that once sat in the front row, laughing confidently, now cushioned by comfortable lives and curated success. For them, inviting Aariz was entertainment, a reminder of how far they had climbed by comparing themselves to someone they assumed had stayed behind. The message pretended warmth, but its undertone was sharp. They even joked privately about seeing him arrive on a motorcycle with a crying child in his arms. Aariz stared at the message for a long time while Zion colored on the floor beside him in the bright noon light. He felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the old instinct to decline, to stay invisible. But something had shifted over the years. Hardship had worn him down, yes, but it had also sharpened him. The man who once bowed his head now carried quiet resilience. He typed a simple reply confirming his attendance, then set his phone aside and returned to helping his son draw a crooked sun. What none of them knew was how Aariz's life had changed behind the scenes. 5 years earlier, during a routine construction project, he noticed a recurring flaw in safety harness systems that endangered workers daily. He spent nights sketching improvements while Zion slept beside him. With borrowed money and relentless persistence, he built a prototype. Rejection followed rejection, but Aariz had learned endurance the hard way. Eventually, a small investor listened. Then a larger firm noticed. By the time the design became standard across multiple companies, Aariz Malik was no longer struggling to survive. He was quietly transforming an industry, saving lives without ever seeking applause. Despite the success, he never moved into extravagance. His priorities were simple. Zion attended a good school, their fridge stayed full, their mornings were calm and sunlit. Aariz measured wealth not by cars or suits, but by the peace of knowing his son felt safe. The reunion day arrived warm and bright, the sky stretched wide and blue, the kind of daytime that made everything feel exposed. The venue was a luxury resort on the edge of the city, glass walls gleaming under the sun. Former classmates arrived in polished sedans, designer clothes, and confident laughter. Conversations revolved around promotions, vacations, and investments. Occasionally, someone glanced toward the entrance, waiting for the expected spectacle. Minutes passed. Then a distant thrum cut through the music and chatter. At first it sounded like traffic. Then it grew louder, heavier, unmistakable. Heads turned upward as the rhythmic beating of blades echoed across the resort. A helicopter appeared against the bright sky, sunlight glinting off its sleek surface as it descended gracefully onto the adjacent helipad. Silence spread faster than shock. Conversations died mid-sentence. Phones froze in hands. The helicopter settled, wind sweeping across the terrace, stirring tablecloths and loose hair. The door opened, and Aariz Malik stepped out. Dressed simply in a crisp light shirt and dark trousers, his posture calm, his expression composed. He helped Zion down carefully, shielding him from the wind, then walked toward the gathering as if this were the most natural arrival in the world. Recognition dawned slowly, painfully. Eyes widened, smiles faltered. Whispers rippled through the crowd, disbelief replacing mockery. This was not the broken boy they remembered. This was a man grounded in quiet authority, holding his son's hand as sunlight framed them both. Aariz did not announce himself. He did not seek validation. He greeted people politely, his tone warm but reserved. Some responded awkwardly, others forced laughter, suddenly aware of their own assumptions. The single dad they once pitied now stood among them, without envy or bitterness, his success undeniable yet understated. As the afternoon unfolded, stories surfaced. Someone mentioned the safety systems now mandatory on construction sites. Another connected the dots to Aariz's company, the one featured in industry magazines. Realization settled heavily. The class loser had not only succeeded, he had done so with integrity, purpose, and humility. Yet the most powerful moment did not come from wealth or status. It came when Zion tugged at his father's hand, pointing excitedly at the swimming pool glittering under the midday sun. Aariz laughed softly, a sound full of life, and lifted his son effortlessly, promising a swim later. That simple exchange radiated a joy deeper than any trophy. Some classmates watched with something new in their eyes, a mix of regret and admiration. They remembered their own careless words, the way they had reduced a human being to a joke. In that bright daylight, there was no hiding from those memories. Aariz stayed for a while, sharing food, listening more than he spoke. He never referenced the past hurt, never sought apologies. His presence alone was enough. When he eventually prepared to leave, the same helicopter waiting patiently under the sun, people gathered to see him off. Not out of spectacle now, but respect. As the aircraft lifted, casting moving shadows across the resort, Aariz looked down at the shrinking figures below. He felt no triumph, no revenge, only closure. The chapter that once haunted him had finally been rewritten, not with anger, but grace. If this story is touching your heart so far, if you feel that quiet strength and second chances matter, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and stay connected with Kindness Touch. Your engagement keeps meaningful stories alive. The helicopter faded into the blue sky, carrying a father and son back to their sunlit life that afternoon. Zion fell asleep mid-flight, his head resting against Aariz's arm, completely unaware of the lesson his father had just taught without words. Success did not need noise. Healing did not need revenge. Dignity spoke for itself. Years later, when Zion would ask about his father's past, Aariz would not tell him about mockery or labels. He would talk about perseverance, about showing up with kindness even when others expect bitterness. He would say that life has a strange way of testing hearts before rewarding them. Just before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words help build a community of empathy and understanding. As the sun dipped lower that day, painting the city in warm gold, Aariz Malik returned home, unlocked the familiar door, and let daylight flood their small but peaceful apartment. He prepared dinner, listened to his son's laughter echo off the walls,